from what I've seen, some pretty subpar workouts and potentially some misinformation as well, unfortunately. I'll tell you now, I'm moving house again in a couple of months, and the first thing I do when I move house is I'm gonna get a new chair. It's a shambles, and I've already broken it so many times. When I sit down, it falls to one side. It's all over the shop. It is all over the shop. But that implies that the mass gaining phase is going well. Big success. Hello, nice to meet you. I've probably already met you. Well, I probably haven't already met you. Hi, you're probably not new to the channel. Hi, I'm Harry, and I'm going to do a video for you on the line, on the YouTube machine, and that's what we're doing right now. This video has been something that's been on the agenda for quite a while now. A few people have sent me some information about this content creator, and a few other bits and bobs that have been occurring, and I figured, you know what, it probably is wise to speak about it, because some of what I'm observing could potentially be quite problematic, and I just want to clarify a few things and maybe clear some things up. But I won't give too much away now, because I've already pre-waffled or pre-rambled, whatever you want to call it, far too much. And I say that every video. I say, you know what, Harry, don't waffle at the start of this video, you know, try and be a bit more concise. And then suddenly camera turns on and I say shut up to myself, and here we are. Before I start the video, I'm going to ask a few favours. You already know what the favours are, but we're going to try anyway. If you do like the video at any point, I would really appreciate it if you did like the video. 1,200 likes in the first 24 hours is the goal, so if we could shoot for that, that'd be bloody tremendous. If you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below, nearly gave away the headpiece, and subscribing to the channel, and maybe even the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. And at the end of the video, I answer a question from the comment section, so if you have a question you want me to answer for comment question of the week, please drop it down below in the comment section, and I shall do so. I said the comment section so many times. I'm going to put something on my head now. I think it makes me look pretty, and we like looking pretty on this channel. This video is probably going to be a bit of every time catches me off guard. Why are you so bright? Wish somebody called me bright. This video might be a two-part thing, and I'm going to explain why as we go through the video. So the creator, her name is April, and her tag is Smalletics, like athletics, but Smalletics, I assume. Her kind of USP, so her unique selling point, is health and fitness for women 5'4" and shorter. So she very much talks about like petite power, and is kind of marketing towards like people who she would deem to be shorter or petite. And I think that in itself raises some questions, but we will get to that eventually. Because I don't want this video to be too long, I can do the YouTube channel analysis, we'll say, and the program analysis, which I have acquired, in the future if you would like to see it. But for now, we're gonna split into the marketing of her videos for who she deems to be a short girl. Section number 2 will be her workouts. Section number 3 will be the discussion about her coaching. Section number 1, we're going to talk about her series she does, which is Short Girl Gym Hacks, in which she seems to provide you with some information or some gym hacks. It is implied apply to those who may be on the shorter side. So legs stronger than your wrists. Use straps with dumbbells. That is not a problem that is isolated to those who are 5'4" and under. That is a problem that nearly anybody who resistance trains will have. When you are resistance training, so you are doing like a pulling motion for your back perhaps, or like a hip hinge variation for your hamstrings, whatever it may be, your grip will likely always give out before your back gives out and before your hamstrings give out, or your posterior chain gives out, we'll say. So when a lot of people say to me, oh Harry, I deadlift but my grip really struggles, put some straps on. If you're doing rowing motions, put some straps on. If you're doing pull down variations, put some straps on. If you're doing RDLs, split squats, whatever that may be, don't be afraid to put some straps on. The thing you've got to ask yourself is, when doing a movement, what are you trying to target? For example, let's talk about like a dumbbell row, as April is doing here. So if you're doing dumbbell rows, and you're primarily doing this for the purpose of, let's say, back hypertrophy, specifically the lats, we'll say, does it not make more sense to eliminate as many variables as possible that could hinder how effectively you can train the lats? If you're training that muscle for the goal of hypertrophy, which is obviously the building of muscle, you want to take that muscle to failure, if not close to failure. If your grip gives out before your lats do, that's preventing you from then taking those lats to failure, thus preventing how effective that movement is for your lats. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if the grip is your weakest link, you can remove that link if you so please. Same with RDLs. If you're trying to place a lot of emphasis on the hamstrings and your grip is giving out before your hamstrings do, not strapping up will essentially limit how effectively you can train those hamstrings. People obviously say, oh, I'm worried about my grip strength getting too weak. If your grip strength is a genuine concern, you can definitely incorporate movements into your workout that train your grip directly for the purpose of strengthening it. Don't allow your failing grip to hold back optimizing or maybe more effectively training other muscles, like I said, obviously the posterior chain, etc. You'll likely reach a point where your smaller wrists fatigue faster than the rest of your body / legs. Wrist fatigue isn't what's occurring here, that's actually forearm and grip fatigue. The rest of your body and legs, again, your legs should not be doing anything to the point of fatigue anyway. They are there to basically hold you up. What should be fatiguing are the pulling muscles, your back and your biceps, etc., which will be necessary for most lower body exercises. This is not a lower body exercise, this is an upper body exercise, like I said, specifically a pull motion. So there's a lot of incorrect bits and bobs in there. Again, I don't know if this is a typo. Short girl hacks again, let's have a look. Not enough range of motion using the hip squat machine. Pull out safety knob for full range of motion. Is that not kind of common sense? And I think your height isn't necessarily massively relevant there because the safety pin can be quite high, it can also be quite low. Very interesting choice of audio there. Interesting, yes. Now let's go on to some of the workouts, Come train with me, lower body, quads and glutes. Let's have a gander. So realistically, this is a lying leg curl variation, which is essentially targeting the hamstrings here. If you do have a machine, I would strongly advise using the machine instead of doing this. The lying leg curl works the hamstrings in the shortened position. This kind of range of motion here, this kind of the top end of it is like the fundamental part. That is the shortened position in which this is placing the most amount of emphasis on. But due to gravity, once you get past 90 degrees, the hamstrings don't need to do anything to take the legs from 90 degrees down to the bottom, which essentially eliminates the shortened position of that movement. You're doing a movement that essentially targets the shortened position of the hamstrings, whilst also doing a variation of that movement that doesn't take you into the shortened position due to the gravity drop off. So it's kind of counterproductive there. To get past 90, gravity says, you know what, I'll do the rest from here, hamstrings, you can take a back seat. Sumo leg press, again, your kind of stance on leg press is essentially going to alter what you're placing greater emphasis on. I have covered this a few videos ago. So obviously if your feet are low and narrow, it's going to be a bit more quad dominant. If your feet are high and narrow, it's going to be a bit more glute dominant. If your feet are wider, as they are here, so sumo leg press as she's stating, that's going to bias the adductors a bit more. So again, it really is just dependent on what you're trying to place greater emphasis on. The big thing here is that range of motion is really try and get as low as you can, because you really want to utilize full ROM. She's holding onto the head pad here. Please don't do that if you are leg pressing. And the reason why I say please don't do that, one of the issues people find when they're leg pressing is their lower back and their glutes will start coming off the bench. That's not what you want. That does increase your risk of injury and does take away the emphasis from the target musculature, so the muscles you're looking to place a greater emphasis on. So that's why these handles are there, for that reason. Grab those handles and pull yourself into that leg press, because like I said, if your bum and lower back starts flying off the place, you're having a bad time and you're actually going to limit how effective that movement is for what you want it to be effective for. Keep that bum and lower back planted. It depends what you're trying to work here. So let's assume you're looking like placing great emphasis on the quads. Doing an anterior loaded movement like this, where the weight is in front of you, is going to be a bit limiting for quad hypertrophy. So again, the development and building of quads, because due to the anterior loaded position, other things are going to fail first, more than likely. So your core may fail first, your arms or your shoulders may fail first. You want your quads to fail first. It's very similar to the straps and the grip thing. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and if you have the opportunity to remove that weak link, it would make sense to do so. And by remove it, I mean do a variation where the weight is essentially on your back or behind you and it's not anterior loaded. Bulgarian split squat. I'm gonna be straight with you. If you've been around the channel for long enough, you know how much I hate the split squat. But that's not a hate in the sense of I don't think it's an effective movement. I think it's a really good movement. A big fan of split squats regarding effectiveness, because bloody good unilateral movement. I hate them because when I do them, they make me feel like I'm not good enough. I grab those dumbbells in both hands. I think to myself, when you are here in my hands and I'm curling you for the biceps, you make me feel good. As soon as I start split squatting you for the lower body, you hurt me inside. How can something that I put so much trust and faith in, that brings me so much joy in many cases, how can they also cause me so much pain? And this is not just the muscles hurt. This is my soul hurts, my heart hurts, and my ego hurts. That was an emotional journey. Standing hamstring curl, this is a very interesting one, because when looking at hamstring curl variations, there are only two variations I would consider, provided you have the equipment to do so. A seated hamstring curl for the lengthened position, and a lying hamstring curl for the shortened position. Because of how this is set up essentially standing, not have the stability of the bench that you're lying on, so many other factors, it can actually prevent you from taking those hamstrings into that fully shortened position, and for a few other reasons is therefore essentially a worse version of the lying hamstring curl. Come train with me chest and shoulders, let's have a gander. I'd much prefer doing my flies with a neutral grip. It really helps me when straightening the arms out and helps me focus on bringing the upper arm across the body, so trying to get my humerus bones to touch, which are obviously the upper arm bones here, because obviously the primary function of the pecs is bringing the humerus across the body. I would come back with a slight bend, take a bit of pressure off the biceps, and as we go through the concentric portion of the rep, you then straighten those arms out so you can shorten the pecs to a greater degree. The bench press is actually not bad technique. I would bring the feet closer in. Again, when looking at like pec hypertrophy, the bench press isn't amazing. Like it's fine, it's okay. But because obviously, like I said, the primary function of the pecs is to bring the humerus across the body, when you're pressing like that, it's not converging. That limits your ability to fully shorten the pec. If you are incline bench pressing or dumbbell pressing, we're looking at about 15 to 45 degrees on the old incline there. 6 times 4 with 10-second rest between sets. Why? Probably get a sick burn, probably get a sick pump from that, but I don't think it's going to be massively effective for hypertrophy. I think what would be more effective is just doing a standard set of, let's say, 6 to 10, or a few sets of 6 to 10. If you are going to add in something like a myo set, you certainly can, which is similar to rest pause. So you do a set of, let's say, 10 reps, you then take it bloody close to failure, if not to failure. You rest for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you go again, maybe once, maybe twice, until you've reached like a target rep. A lateral raise, if you look at my video I did regarding obviously the best influences you've never heard of, Alexandra Redmond did a really good video on this, and I did feature it in that video regarding how to make the lateral raise better. And essentially what you want to do is you want to work more in the scapular plane, which is essentially think about moving your arms to about 30 to 45 degrees in front of you. Cable reverse fly, again with the cable reverse fly, the big thing is this is obviously going to be for the rear delts predominantly. What we would want to do here is the cable to be higher up. Ideally, not coming to this center point, I want the cable to be going across. So in this case, I'd probably go side on and do one arm at a time. For the rear delts, so the muscle fibers of the rear delts kind of run like 45 degrees. Therefore, it typically makes more sense to then ensure you are then working in the same direction as those muscle fibers. So rather than flying like this, I would fly down at 45 degrees. Cable tricep push down. Again, in this case, because of the rope being quite short, it's quite limiting regarding how much you can shorten the triceps. Try and get 2 ropes, so make a really long rope. Pull your shoulders back, elbows back, and that then allows you to extend with your elbows behind the body, thus allowing you to shorten the muscle a bit further and a bit more effectively, because this movement very much targets the shortened position of the triceps rather than the lengthened position, which would be something more like overhead or something like a skull crusher or something along those lines. And now obviously we have her coaching. Like I said, she does have a free guide which I've downloaded, and also a YouTube channel, which I can certainly look at both of those in another video if you want me to. I'm just wary that this video is already going to be quite long, so I'm just being a bit cautious. 4 monthly payments of $297. It's if you're 5'4" and shorter, it feels so much harder for you to lose weight than your taller friends. Height certainly can have quite an impact on BMR, so basal metabolic rate, so how many calories you need to consume versus expend, etc., etc. It seems to me that April has created a market that isn't really there, and almost created a problem that isn't actually a problem. She very much enforces that you need to train differently because you're shorter, but that is just not the case. The largest thing that's going to change based on height is largely going to be BMR, so basal metabolic rate, so how many calories you have to consume to maintain weight. If you are taller, you typically may have to consume more calories than somebody who is shorter. And feeding people the belief that you have to train differently based on your height kind of leads people down a rabbit hole of mass misinformation and unrealistic expectations that they don't need to go down. And despite how much I do appreciate that she encourages women to get into the gym and really promotes resistance training, which I think is fantastic, she's obviously doing a good job of doing so. I think she's doing so at the expense of her viewers and her audience, which I really don't appreciate. She's almost capitalizing off a market she's like semi-created and almost promoting that it's going to be so much harder for you to reach your goals if you're shorter. And that can very much largely lead to the development of insecurities, which again is going to be a big problem if you ask me. At first impressions, again, just strike me as this is more of an opportunity to capitalize off the industry, create a USP, so unique selling point that isn't there, to make money rather than to benefit and better her audience and those who choose to support her, which is a real shame, to be honest, because this is an extortionate amount of money. I've had a few people message me saying, oh, this person wants $300 to $500 a month for coaching. I'm going to tell you, 99% of times, don't do it. If I'm paying this much money for coaching, if I don't wake up every morning to a newly written poem about how I am better than split squats make me feel, I'm not there for it. There are very few coaches in the world that I would pay that much for. I think realistically, if I am paying that much, I want training, I want nutrition, I want them to analyse my blood work potentially, depending on what I'm doing with my health. I want them to analyse everything in my life essentially, and I want their level of knowledge to be huge. So again, it's just like I said, it's capitalising off a market that doesn't need to be there, that she may have contributed to creating herself. And despite how much I do appreciate what she's doing for the industry and encouraging resistance training, which I think is phenomenal. I'm a big believer in resistance training for nearly any goal. It's just a shame that money seems to be such a powerful driver, in addition to, from what I've seen, some pretty subpar workouts and potentially some misinformation as well, unfortunately. But like I said, I don't want to ramble too much because I'm aware that I may be doing a part 2 of this video where I will delve into greater detail regarding the analysis of the YouTube channel and her 7-day workout guide that I've acquired. So if you do want to see that, please let me know in the comment section that you do want to see it, and I can certainly do so. Again, these are just my thoughts and opinions. You may not agree with what I'm saying. In fact, you may disagree with what I'm saying, and that's absolutely fine. Just know that no, you don't need to pay that much money for coaching if you don't want to, nor does your training have to be wildly different if you're 5'4" and shorter. Now obviously we're gonna crack on with comment question of the week, and it's quite a short one, but it's actually a bit of a different one, because obviously Bloggolates has just finished a 60-day update for her kind of 90-day journey. Rest assured, I am going to do a video on this, but I'm waiting for her 90-day journey to finish. But one comment in particular really got to me, and I will be featuring this comment in the video, but I just wanted to kind of touch on it very quickly now because a few things I want to just address. Cassie Ho from Bloggolates gained 9 pounds of muscle, obviously within the 60-day period. I've been training for years and worked on my programming and nutrition the whole time. I've never had a jump that big. I feel like a failure. I do power building and eat really well. Definitely not underfeeding. I won't go into too much detail because I'm saving that for the video, but just know DEXA scans probably aren't nearly as accurate as you think they are. And to put it into perspective, Cassie is an advanced trainer. She's been going to the gym for many years. Although she is probably regaining some muscle that she had previously lost, I'm telling you now, no, she did not gain 9 pounds of muscle in 60 days. And no, you are not a failure. Those results and those claims are not accurate, nor are they truthful. And I'm really sorry that it's making you feel like you aren't good enough, and I'm really sorry that it's making you feel like you're a failure and I can assure you you are not. Please don't compare yourself to the results of influencers. Please don't compare yourself to the results of people you see online. As I've said so many times before, social media is a highlight reel, and just because they post something online, even things such as a DEXA scan result, doesn't necessarily mean it's true, doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. But that's it, that's the video. If you like the video, please let me know you like the video by dropping a like on the video. 1,200 likes in the first 24 hours is obviously the goal, so if we can reach that, that'll be bloody splendid. If you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below, and maybe even the bell next to it so you can subscribe to the channel and get notifications when I upload every week, twice a week. And if you too have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, drop it down below for comment question of the week and I shall do so. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating how pretty this bow makes me look, and also for tolerating my brief emotional vulnerability and ramble about the pain that split squats cause me. And thank you for tolerating the video.